All right, if you're in marketing, you know the struggle, right? Trying to cut through all that noise to build some real, actual trust. Well, that's where micro-influencers come in. Let's break down how these creators are totally changing the game.
And yes, Sprout Social absolutely nailed it with this one. I mean, remember when it was all about that huge follower count? Yeah, those days are pretty much over. We've all gotten so good at just scrolling past those big celebrity endorsements that feel, a little disconnected, maybe a little inauthentic. Real influence, it's built way differently now.
So, okay, if a massive follower count isn't the magic bullet anymore, then what is? Where does that real influence actually come from? Well, the key is this huge, fundamental shift in how we build trust online.
Okay, so over the next few minutes, we're going to cover 4 key things. First, we'll talk about the end of the megaphone era. Then, why small is actually mighty. After that, I'll give you a real playbook for vetting partners. And finally, how to measure what really matters, your ROI. Let's get into it.
All right, part 1, the end of megaphones. We're diving right into the core problem every brand is facing today, this massive trust deficit.
I mean, think about it. How many ads have you just scrolled right past today? We are all completely bombarded with them. And honestly, we've gotten really good at just tuning them out. That's the whole problem with that old megaphone marketing style. It's just noise. And in this new landscape, trust, well, that's the only currency that actually matters.
Which brings us perfectly to the hero of our story today, the micro-influencer. Seriously, this is where the real advantage is for any brand that's paying attention. So who exactly are these micro-influencers? We're talking about content creators with a following anywhere from, say, 1,000 to 100,000 people. But listen, don't get hung up on the numbers. Their real power is in their super specific niche expertise and the genuine connection they have with their community. It's that whole parasocial relationship thing, right? Their followers feel like they actually know them. You could think of them as the cool older sister of their community. Their recommendations feel less like an ad and more like solid advice from someone you really trust.
Okay, you ready for a pretty jaw-dropping stat? Micro-influencers drive a staggering 60% higher engagement rate compared to the big macro-influencers. And we're not just talking likes and comments here. We're talking about real people having actual conversations about your brand.
And all that amazing engagement, it's not just for show. It actually drives sales. In fact, micro-influencers can boost your conversion rate by 20%. And why is that? It's simple, because their followers genuinely trust what they have to say.
So, what if I told you that for every single dollar you spend on influencer marketing, you could get back almost $6? Yeah, that's the average ROI. And you can bet that cost-effective micro-influencers are a huge reason why.
And this chart just illustrates that engagement gap perfectly. Look at this. Some studies show micro-influencers hitting an average engagement rate as high as 8%, while the macro-influencers, they're often just hovering around 1 or 2%. It's such a clear visual of that whole quality over quantity idea.
Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, this is all great for B2C brands selling cool stuff. But guess what? Micro-influencers are a secret weapon in the B2B world too. It's a bit of a different ballgame for sure. Here, it's less about those quick, impulsive sales, and way more about building that long-term credibility with the key decision makers in your specific industry.
Okay, so maybe you're convinced. Micro-influencers are the way to go. But how do you actually find the right ones for your brand? Let's get into the practical side of things now with a super simple vetting playbook.
Finding the right influencer shouldn't feel like guesswork. It really comes down to 3 steps. First, define your goals. What do you actually need? Is it broad brand awareness, or are you looking for direct sales? Step 2, assess the alignment. Do their values, their content style, their audience demographics, does it all match up with yours? And finally, step 3, do your homework. You got to check for red flags. Look for any controversial past content or signs of fake engagement. Following this simple process honestly protects your brand and really sets your campaign up for success from the get-go.
And that brings us to the last and maybe the most crucial piece of this whole puzzle, proving that your campaign actually worked. Let's talk about measuring that real ROI. So, the million-dollar question, right? How do you know if your campaign is actually paying off? It all comes down to attribution. It's actually pretty straightforward. You can give each influencer a unique discount code to track who's driving sales.
Or you can use trackable affiliate links with UTM parameters. You know, those little bits of code at the end of a URL that tell you exactly where your website traffic came from. Either way, you'll have the hard data you need to prove your ROI.
And once you have that sales data, the rest is easy. You just plug your numbers into this simple formula right here to calculate your ROI. So, for example, let's say you spent $1,000 on a campaign and it brought in $5,000 in sales. Your ROI would be a whopping 400%. Not too shabby, right?
Of course, where you run your campaign matters a lot. TikTok, for example, can deliver absolutely explosive engagement from micro-creators, but tracking that direct ROI can sometimes be a little challenging. Instagram is a really strong all-arounder, fantastic for e-commerce. And then you have YouTube, which is just excellent for those in-depth reviews, and it's got really good, clear tracking through links in the description. The right choice? It really depends entirely on your product and what you're trying to achieve.
So, let's bring this all home. We've really moved into a new era of marketing. You can call it a trust economy. And in this economy, true influence isn't about who can shout the loudest anymore. No, it's about building genuine, authentic connections, one follower at a time.
And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on for your own strategy. As we look to the future, is it possible that the most effective way to build a brand is no longer about one single, massive broadcast, but instead it's about fostering millions of tiny, authentic, small-scale conversations? It's a really powerful question to think about.